Welcome to Win with Richardson and Richardson. What's important now? Success in business most often comes down to hard work, not by silver bullets and quick fixes. It's knowing where to focus that hard work that's key to winning. Join sales prospecting expert and 3-time seven-figure business founder Carrie Richardson and managing partner of R&R Consulting and former owner of Doberman Technologies, Ian Richardson, for radical honesty regarding strategic planning, accountability, and execution that will get you the systematic results you're working toward. Let's get into today's episode. Thought leader and your host, Carrie Richardson.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carrie Richardson. I'm a partner at Richardson and your host today for Win What's Important Now. With me today is Dustin Bolander, who's the founder of both Clear Guidance and Beltex. Dustin, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm glad we got a little bit of time to talk before we recorded today. I think that everybody's going to find this really interesting. Not very many people wake up one day and say, I think I'm going to start an insurance company. So let's start with a little bit of your background. Tell me about Clear Guidance and how you became a managed services business owner.
Sure. So I actually started off managed services back in 2007 at another MSP. We bought out the founder. I ended up selling out of that and was like, all right, I'm done. I did my managed services. I had my MSP adventure. And that lasted about 6 months, actually. I had some carve outs around it. Some stuff fell on my lap. And so in 2019, Clear Guidance got started around law firms. So 70-80% of our clients are law firms at Clear Guidance. And then that long, crazy road to getting into insurance was, as it became more and more of a requirement, I'm sitting here filling out these forms. I'm trying to explain cybersecurity to these agents, to these carriers, and a lot of them didn't understand it. It was, oh, do you have this? And I'm like, yeah, but we have these compensating controls and we have EDR. They're like, what's EDR? And just more and more going on. And so finally, about 2 years ago, I threw my hands up and it was those, I'm going to get licensed. I'm going to learn this stuff. I'm having to do 99% of the work. So might as well get that last 1% also, which led to the end of last year that we were able to set up Beltex. We have our own policy now, which is really cool because all that stuff that I sat there saying, Carrie, this is dumb. It shouldn't be done this way. We actually have a control over a lot of those things as far as issuing an insurance policy.
It's pretty amazing. Most people just sit around and complain about it and fill out the paperwork, and you decided to go full circle and just invent a whole new category of insurance. All right, so you started 2 managed services firms and then an insurance company. What was your educational background?
Whatever you want to call, insert the cheesy phrase, the school of hard knocks, that kind of thing. I actually started off, we had a family business growing up doing dog training of all things. So that's whenever people are like, oh yeah, what was your career started? And I was a dog trainer, but I was doing IT for our family business. And then whenever I went to college to help pay for school, I got a night job working help desk at a hospital. And then up until I was about probably 32, I said, I'm not going to be, even owning an MSP, I was like, I'm not going to be an IT guy my whole life. And at that point, you just accept the reality of it. And I was like, I own an MSP. I think I'm an IT guy. But so, yeah, I got into that. I mentioned on the first one, we actually bought out the founder, me and 2 other guys. And so that was interesting because it was going from break fix. We were just the classic, how many hours can we work? How many hours can we bill? Did the transition into managed services. Like I mentioned earlier, sold out. And then with the first MSP, we were really generalists. It was, oh, you need IT. Great, I'll sell your firewall, I'll do this, that, and the other. And I talked to a lot of folks that said riches and niches, it's just easier all around. So the second time I had a lot of good opportunities with law firms. So we just went all in on that. And it's the vast majority of our clients are just mid-sized law firms.
You're still running the managed services company today?
I am. We have a pretty good sized team. There's 29 folks total. So I'm not in it, the trenches as much day to day, but yeah, I split my time 50-50.
Okay, so when you started your second managed IT firm, you had a little bit of a war chest from the sale of the first MSP, or did you have to just start over?
Little bit of both. I didn't take a paycheck at all the first year, which made it easier. The other thing is for starting an MSP the second time is a total cheat code. If you play video games, there's a thing called New Game Plus where you get to restart again, but with a bunch of your items and stuff like that. It's that same kind of concept. I made so many mistakes on the first one. I did layoffs twice because of cash flow issues, this, that, and the other. It wasn't, there was some good lessons that I learned, but it's one of those things you always learn the best from pain kind of deal. Is I learned so many bad lessons on the first one that I skipped over a bunch of mistakes that I think first time owners have. So we skyrocketed pretty quick on it. So yeah, I didn't take a paycheck for most of the first year living off my sale from the previous MSP, but we were profitable from almost day one, even taking that into account.
You just made a lot of enemies, I'm sure, on our podcast today. What's the biggest side-by-side comparison, mistakes you made in the first company, things you did differently in the second? What was the biggest game changer for you?
Going all in on your stack. So the first time it was like, all right, Carrie, we need to replace your firewall. We're doing Sonic Wall this week. Hey, we got this cool new EDR thing. I want to do it. At Clear Guidance, it's here's the seat price. It goes up this much every year, and we just keep rolling everything on. There's no a la carte. And so it's awesome from the help desk perspective because literally every single client you walk into looks the same. They all have Huntress, they all have a FortiGate firewall, so on and so forth. It just makes the support side of it way easier. You don't have to have that rock star engineer that knows 8 different kinds of firewalls and then, oh, this client has this weird setup. So one extreme to the other, but just that standardizing on the stack and pushing it out. That was the other thing is a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that we have Huntress as our EDR. Well, do you have it on every client, right? Whenever you go to work a security incident, ooh, do they have this or not? The full stack, standard stack, but then also pushed out to everybody.
So a big difference between having to be a jack of all trades and a generalist to being a specialist and, hey, this is what we sell, buy it, don't buy it?
Yeah, exactly. Here's the package. You're taking the Gary Pika, here's the cake kind of thing, right? It's one package, that's it. It includes everything.
Having just spent a week with Gary Pika and the True Methods, True Peer Groups, I have heard a lot about that. So yeah. I could see how that would be very helpful.
The one other piece that was interesting, and you made the joke about a lot of enemies earlier, is I get a lot of flack for saying this, but our first year, we also did end up taking on opportunistically a lot of hourly work that would come in to where we knew we could rip through it, not ongoing, but hey, can you guys come in and install these firewalls, this kind of stuff, that project work. And that was around just juicing cash flow, right? So at that point, okay, we know we're about to make another hire. Let's take on these 2 or 3 projects so we can make that hire now. So if you go back and look at year one, a lot of people will be like, that's a really bad mix of revenue, but we were intentionally doing it knowing we weren't going to keep it long term, but it was just, oh, cool, we can do, here's a quick 30K that covers a new hire salary for 3 months. Yes, absolutely, we'll grab it real quick, which is against that general advice that you see in the MSP industry.
You have some basis for comparison from financial education, business 1, business 2, like the things that I took risks on in my first business, I would absolutely not do today. I would not put sponsoring IT Nation on my visa and just hope that it all worked out. So we all live and learn. So you're going along, your managed services company is 29 people, you're doing great, and you wake up one day and say, gee, my life isn't complicated enough. I think I'm going to start an insurance company. Is that kind of how it went down?
Basically, I'm not good at having downtime at all. I got 3 kids, a bunch of broken down cars I like working on. So it's one or the other. Start a new business, buy a new project car. My wife likes the business side of it better because our driveway's full. It was one of those, it just got frustrating. We're doing all the work. We understand this better than the person selling the product almost every time. It's a young industry. I think the first cyber policy came out in the late 2000s. Relatively speaking, it's still upstart. It's still changing on an annual basis. So it was a little bit of frustration. My friend Kelvin, who created SIP, he used the term spite-driven development, right? He created that out of just there's nothing else out there that does a good job on it. I think that was a little bit on this side of it too, was it's a good opportunity, but also just the frustration of, I'm just going to do it myself, got us to where we're at today.
So what were the problems that you identified when you were trying to help your clients secure cyber insurance policies?
Yeah, so a couple different pieces. From just the pure cybersecurity side of it was insurance is perpetually 12, 18 months behind actual cybersecurity. So we'll be talking, I'm not going to go super in-depth geek out on it. We had, like, for the people that know what Log4j was, that was November 2022 at this point. I just had somebody in insurance the other day was like, hey, have you heard of this Log4j thing? And I'm like, yeah, that happened like a long while ago, ancient history in cybersecurity times.
So for those of us who aren't technical, what does that mean?
It was a security vulnerability that was like everything on the internet was affected. So that was if you think in insurance, as they talk about catastrophic events, so the equivalent of a giant hurricane hitting Florida, Log4j was the closest thing that's happened in cyber so far to a giant hurricane. So it was a bad, scary, nobody knew where it was too, because it was like a Lego block in the thing, it was a huge headache across the board in every way, shape, and form. So that was a big turning point for the insurance industry because they hadn't dealt with that before. But there's still literally to this day, to last week, of trying to understand all that. And then on the cybersecurity side, you have the people that are in the trenches doing it. All of them have moved on, right? We're tackling the next challenge, that kind of thing. So just that insurance moves slow, which makes sense. Historically, like hurricanes, fire haven't changed that much, so they don't have to move fast. You look back at 100 years of data, you can't do that in cyber. So it's just so different. So that was one of the pieces. And then the other one, as an MSP, they don't trust us a lot in the insurance industry. That was the biggest thing. It's second guessing what we're doing. The tools that we use aren't ever on the applications. It's these AT&T Alien Vault, managed service or managed security service. No MSP uses that. Why is it on the form? You're sending this out to SMBs. Nobody's using it, right? Our billion-dollar customers with the policy use it. There's a difference between enterprise and SMB. So that part has gotten, I don't want to say fixed, but it's a lot better than it was a couple of years ago. Insurance has finally realized that SMB is not enterprise, right? That it's completely different. Everything about it, like we were talking finances earlier, like everything about it's completely different, including cybersecurity. So that's a little bit better, but still not great. And then the final piece was a lot of insurance is competing with MSPs. So that's become like a running joke of, oh, this isn't a safe thing. But by the way, we sell the same thing over here. You can buy it from us if you want to. So it becomes on the MSP side, you almost got to be on defense whenever your clients are going through the insurance renewals, because the insurance guy is selling a lot of competing services and saying, oh, with your policy, you should buy X, Y, and Z, which just let insurance be insurance, right? I don't go and whenever I get my homeowner's insurance, they don't send a repair person out with it. They're not selling me home warranties with it. Not usually, at least. And cyber insurance.
Not yet.
Really yeah, not yet. So that was the three big pain points, right? That the slowness of it, not understanding SMB, and then that competition side of it too.
Now, there's one thing that you mentioned when we were prepping for the podcast about the insurance companies not allowing the MSP to remediate the issues. So if there was a challenge, you couldn't be compensated for fixing the problem afterwards.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's actually probably the most important part of what we did. So there's 4 things we did. So on that side of it, if we look at, say there's a ransomware attack, right? Part of it is, okay, you got to restore from backups. There's nobody better equipped that can do it better and faster than the MSP who's been managing those backups in most cases. I'm not going to go into, there's the bad MSPs out there, that part of it, but for the most part, your average MSP, they know the backups, they already have access to it. So why is insurance not taking advantage of that? And the cool thing is, it's very rare that you get to say win-win. On the insurance side, what we want to do is keep our claims costs down. That we go, okay, Carrie has this big breach. We're going to spend $800,000 on the insurance side. We pay everything out. I'd rather that be 600 or rather 80,000, even better. But the lower we can get that. So bringing in the MSP is they're familiar already. They can work faster, which means we're saving money. It's awesome. So that was really baffling to me why insurance was always like, oh, no, we're not doing it. But instead, we're going to bring in this team of almost fresh college graduates that are billing $300 a year because the incident response companies can't hire fast enough. Guys, come on, this doesn't make sense. So whenever we were setting up Beltex, our partner carrier, whenever we pitched that, it was an interesting meeting because they just sat back and you could see the wheels turning. And then the lady who's the head attorney just goes like this. She goes, I don't know why nobody else has done this yet. This makes perfect sense. So yeah, the MSP they have a playbook up front so they know what they can and can't do. And then on the actual other side of it, as we get into it, the insurance company will leverage the MSP to do certain tasks. Again, faster, cheaper, better for everybody.
So I'm sure there's lots of people listening today who are not technical, who are entrepreneurs with small businesses that use MSPs. Walk us through what happens when you have to make a cyber insurance claim now.
Yeah, so today, for the vast majority of it, I'm going to simplify it a little bit. But so something happens, the general expectation from insurance is don't touch anything. So that's the first problem. There's some certain things that you can do in some cases to be slowing down, containing it. isolating the network, things like that. But there's been so many mistakes. I understand where insurance is coming from there. So many people do, well, we just restored from backups. Oops, the attacker was still in the network at that point whenever we restored from a week ago. But don't touch anything. Pick up the phone and call, or in a lot of cases, send an email to claims. Hey, here's my policy number. We just had a ransomware attack. So at that point, insurance is going to bring in a breach attorney. So it's a lawyer and the lawyer is going to be working for you as the policyholder. And then that breach attorney is going to bring in the forensics people, the incident response, the whole 9 yards, whatever needs to be done. So they're both your legal counsel and your project manager in most cases. Then the incident response people come in, they look at your network, they say, okay, here's what happened, here's what we're going to do. And then past that, you may have more stuff. Say you have medical records, you're probably going to owe some money to the state that you're based in. Texas, I think it's $250 per medical record per consumer record that gets breached, stuff like that. That's the interesting part. Insurance will cover that. So a lot of people think it's just looking at the technical part of it, recovery. It'll cover the regulatory fines. If you have good insurance, which we do, it'll cover business interruption too. So the easiest sell on that is if you're talking to a law firm where they do billable hours. Okay, guys, you're going to be down for a week. How many lost billable hours is that? The business interruption will cover that as well. A restaurant, here's what we would normally make every day. Business interruption would say, oh, cool, you're normally bringing in $2,000 a day. You're down for a week. Here's a $14,000 check. So it's not just the technical part. It's we were talking earlier, the other parts of the business, right, that are impacted by that outage helps cover that.
So tell me about Beltex and the difference between that cyber insurance policy and what's been commonly available to date.
Yeah, so the two big pieces that we have are on the application side is we're built around the controls themselves. So the concepts, the technology is not around specific products. And so the reason I say that is you'll sometimes have, which of the following do you use for protecting your email? Here's 6 things on this dropdown. Ours is just, do you have multi-factor on everything? We don't care what you're using. It's just, is it protected? Do you have one of the big ones that we require, which I don't know any other carrier that requires it for every single insured, but do you have 24/7 EDR is endpoint detection response, but it's basically a thing on every single computer. And then there's a team that's watching it, butts in seats 24/7. Because if you think about it, the hackers don't go home at 6 o'clock, right? It's going to be in the middle of the night. It's going to be on Thanksgiving weekend is one of the worst ones in the US because they know that we're all just sitting around getting fat on turkey. So things like that, right? So it's not, oh, do you use this team, right? Do you have carry security force watching you? It's, do you just have a security team? So we've left it very open-ended from that standpoint. It's, do you have the right boxes checked? Not, are you using these products that we like? And then on the other side of it, whenever that claim comes around, which statistically, a lot of companies are getting breached, so you're probably going to have it. We got a playbook on the front end. Hey, MSP, here's what you can start off doing. Here's what's safe. Here's what doesn't destroy evidence, so the forensics people can come in and do what they need to. And then on the other side of it, the the claims team is going to have the MSP sitting on all the calls, and they're going to come to the MSP on certain things and say, hey guys, we just validated that we need to restore from backup from a week ago. Can you please go make that happen? And then the MSP can get paid by insurance for that.
So we discussed earlier that starting a telemarketing company, for me, all I needed was a phone and a computer. And starting an MSP, it was pretty much an internet connection, phone and a computer. What does it take to start an insurance company?
So that was a fun learning experience. After doing the 2 companies, I was like, all right, it's starting a business. How hard can it be? So I dove in feet first, which I don't want to say bad idea. I survived, but it was rough. It is a lot of paperwork. It is a lot of state filings. Getting into the business nerd side of it a little bit is we have to have a entity filing in every single state, all 50. So it's not just go get the license, but we're on file with the Secretary of State and then also with the Department of Insurance. So fun thing is insurance is regulated entirely on the state level. So there is no federal anything, is you just go get your typical tax ID. But every single individual state, we have to go and file. Florida was one of the ones that was more frustrating, amazingly. I got New York done before I got Florida done, which blew my mind. That's whenever you talk in general business, people are like, New York's hard to do business. I ended up just flying out to Florida finally because I had to get fingerprinted. So yeah, it was a lot. But yeah, so it was the filing. Myself and one of my business partners, she's really good at compliance, paperwork, that kind of stuff. We spent probably 2 weeks straight of just doing nothing but state filings, looking up the regulations, this, that, and the other, DocuSign back and forth nonstop. But yeah, that was the biggest piece of it. And it ended up being, I think it was $35,000 in just fees between all 50 states to get properly licensed and filed and everything. Not counting the other work we had to do leading up to that, but just to have Beltex registered to where we could sell insurance in that state. And we still have California and Georgia. We're still waiting on the final sign off from both of those. So that took us, we started in September and we did not have the vast majority of it done until probably late December. If you think government moves slow, the Department of Insurance moves even slower.
I'm assuming that there has to be a certification, some education that somebody has to hold to even apply for these things. So
yeah,
whose job was that?
I'm one of those. I'm just going to do it myself to get started if you haven't caught on. So I will not be that person going forward. We have somebody else for that. But yeah, I actually went out and got my Texas insurance license. It's surprisingly, it's surprisingly easy if you're good at standardized test taking and memorizing, which I skated through school just by virtue of that. I was one of those, don't do any of your homework, and then I could go in and just kill it on the standardized test. So it wasn't that hard for me. But it ended up being on the Texas one at least. Cyber was mentioned one time and it was a wrong answer. So it was not super practical knowledge. It's great. I know in general how insurance works. And my wife had a car accident and that really helped negotiating with Geico. But from the cyber insurance perspective, like it's knowing the 7 forms of homeowners insurance isn't really useful for me. So that was the biggest struggle, was just it was boring. But yeah, so got my Texas license. And then at that point, though, it is just a lot of paperwork. The actual regulations around it you have to be aware of, but the filing, getting everything set up is just sitting there filling stuff out.
The major difference is ease of use, would you say, for between Beltex and a different insurance carrier for cybersecurity policies?
Our form is a lot simpler and more concise. There's a lot of, I could go through a long list of industry folks to say thanks that have given me feedback on it. Bob Miller and Wes Spencer were 2 big ones on that. As we just went through is clarity, transparency. And then another piece, so if you can't tell, we're nailing down the marketing message on it still. You keep making me think of stuff. But it's also available, you can go 100% online to get it, which is very rare for cyber insurance right now. I think we're the only active one that you can do that. But it's buying car insurance. If you're buying something simple, like, cool, I got 2 cars, me and my wife, I need to get them insured. I'm just going to go online. I'm not going to call up an insurance agent and run through it. If you're a bigger company, say you got 300 employees, Beltex isn't for you, right? You should probably be talking to an insurance agent. But if I'm a 30-person retail store, I don't need to go through this whole song and dance. I can go in, I can fill my stuff out, I get the policy, you e-sign, pay and go. Again, just that trying to remove all the different obstacles, the headaches, stuff like that. But yeah, ease of use was one of the cornerstones whenever we were putting this together.
And this is something that a consumer, or what we would call an end user in our ecosystem, could fill out, or the MSP can bring it to their attention and say, hey, this is a thing you're going to need.
Yep. Yeah, because what we're seeing a lot of times with driving, like your typical Beltex customer is going to be a end user, like a small business that is new to insurance. So something came up where they need it. We've had, for example, car dealerships and repair shops to be licensed for certain companies have to get a cyber policy. Like it's a mechanic that's right. I got Joe's repair shop. Joe doesn't care about cyber insurance. He's, I just need to get something, right? I need quick and easy. I don't want to sit down and talk to it. So his MSP is like, cool, we got this Beltex thing. This is this new requirement that you need. Just go here, fill it out real quick. Version 2 is going to be coming out shortly. We're going to have an MSP form where they can pre-fill it for their customer. So that way, again, it's, you don't even have to sit there with your customer, pre-fill it out, they get the link and all the security stuff is already marked out on it. And then Joe's able to go grab that policy. And so at that point, they're telling us their revenue. There's a couple questions around whenever they do like wire transfers and stuff like that, but it's on the shorter side for a cyber insurance form. And the goal is that you don't have to have a translator sit in there. That's been one of the other big complaints. They're saying this, what does this even mean? The cybersecurity guys are sitting there reading it saying, this isn't, you can't answer this question. So we've tried to make everything just as black and white as we can for both the insured, the end customer, right, and the MSP as they're filling it out.
From an opportunity perspective, where do you see the industry going? I know everybody has errors and omissions insurance now. and all kinds of other. I just noticed in my homeowner's policy, they do not cover insurrection. So policies are changing, things are changing. What's going to change in cybersecurity insurance that Beltex is going to have to keep on top of?
One of the big pieces that's going around is they had the war exclusions before, which was you're not covered. Okay, if a Russian hacker hits my network, and this has been in the news, this is the hot button thing everybody talks about, was there was some big case because they said it was the Russian government attacked this company and they declined their coverage, this, that, and the other. So that's not really clear yet, but it's getting hashed out slowly. But the next one that's coming up is a catastrophic event. So I used the example earlier of like the big hurricane hitting Florida. So imagine there's so many companies that are running on Office 365, right? So Office 365 goes down for a couple days. Technically your insurance covers it, but if I have 1,000 policies at Beltex that are on there, that's a huge payout. I don't know that a lot of insurance companies will be able to fully survive that. So you're starting to see stuff come out where it's okay, these systemic events may or may not be covered. And then it's insurance. So the way that insurance deals with everything, an umbrella policy, is we're going to put more insurance out there. So now you have, what do they call them? Catastrophic cyber bonds. So it's only for these huge, I know, it's ridiculous. But that's the next piece that's coming out is funny timing that we're recording this. We just had that huge Teams outage last week, right? So that kind of stuff coming up, that's going to be the next big piece. I haven't figured it out. I don't think anybody has yet, but the industry is starting to work their way through that because there's going to be that Log4j thing ended up not being that horrible from an insurance perspective, but something's going to sooner or later. We're going to get that huge hurricane. And so the industry's like, how do we deal with that? The government had talked about doing some kind of cyber insurance backstop. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and make predictions on that, but that's the big problem. Whenever I'm going to an insurance conference next week, very exciting.
That sounds very exciting.
But that's going to be one of the big points of discussion was these catastrophic events and how do we cover those? Because if we got the whole industry is like 6 billion right now, if let's say 50% of those are on Office 365 and it goes down and insurance has to pay out, like it's not going to survive straight up. There's not enough money. Okay, what are we going to build around that?
I guess that's a problem for the insurance conference next week, and we're not going to go there.
My answer was always if Microsoft is down for a week, we probably all have bigger problems and we're not worried about our insurance claims yet.
Microsoft goes down for a week. Can we just all go on vacation, Dustin?
It sounds amazing.
I do find it very fascinating that you went from managed IT to something that requires even more bureaucracy and paperwork.
Yeah, that part has not been as fun. One of the nice things on IT is just like how quick it moves. And it's been a little while now, so I've gotten used to it, but the insurance is definitely the slowest moving industry. On the IT side, I've worked in a couple other different industries. I mentioned earlier, I started off in medical. Insurance moves extremely slow, both from the regulatory standpoint, but then also just the nature of it too, that they are so risk adverse. So there is constantly, I'll have these conversations with people in the industry, and we're just going to wait and see. And so my nature, and I think you're the same way, is just there's opportunity here. Guys, we should take advantage of the opportunity. Come on. And it's just pulling teeth. We talked with, I want to say 30 different, going back to there's always more insurance. There's also a thing called reinsurance that we buy insurance for our insurance companies. So to get Beltex off the ground, we had to meet and find reinsurance. We met with 30 something reinsurance companies before we finally found one to work with. And a lot of them were just like, this cyber thing, it's pretty new, it's changing really fast, and we just need to wait and see what happens. So that part of it has been, I'm not going to say I'm okay with it. I'm reluctantly used to it at this point. But yeah, it's a very cautious, slow moving industry. And then even whenever they do go to get started, you're looking at months before something ramps up fully. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be your carrier partner themselves, or like the software you use to run the insurance, that kind of thing. We had one piece and it was, what did they tell us? In June, they said it's ready, and it was not actually ready until the first week of January. But that's just the timeline it moves on. You get used to, at this point, we're not proposing or announcing or doing anything until it's actually a done deal. Like on the IT side, you've done partnerships and stuff where it's, oh yeah, we're in motion. We're going to announce this. We know it'll be wrapped in the next 30 days and we can actually start moving on it. That doesn't ever happen in insurance.
Like software development that's supposed to be done in January and it's next January and it's still not ready.
Yeah, picture the slowest software developers in the world.
One other thing I wanted to point out that we didn't touch on was the competitive pricing of Beltex compared to some of the other offers out there.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So, yeah, on that side of it too, we are generally one of, if not the most competitive on the pricing side. So, with the SMB side of it, the smaller businesses go more towards that micro SMB. You're seeing stuff in the news. So, it's, oh, yeah, the average policy is 3,000, 10,000, that kind of thing. If you have a business that's like $1 million, $2 million a year in revenue, we're seeing policies that are around $1,000 a year based off of if you have good security controls. So it's one of those things you had asked earlier as the industry grows, the opportunity and stuff is one of the big reasons that I got into this. Same reason on the MSP side where it's like SMBs are just not secure enough. The ones that don't have insurance that haven't even looked at it, just go out and get some quotes. Go to Beltex, maybe, ideally, right? But it's not as expensive as the news makes it sound. There are, for the smaller businesses, you're looking at, on the worst case, a couple $1,000. If it comes in more than that, probably means you have just atrocious security. So go turn on MFA, get good backups and stuff, go back, try again. But yeah, like I said, we saw one come across the other day that was like $900. So cyber insurance is actually pretty affordable.
Something they should talk to their MSP about before they purchase it? Or does somebody just go and buy it and then call their MSP and tell them?
I would always talk to the MSP because that's your security advisor. That's your risk advisor is the term that they use in insurance. And so that was, again, part of what got me doing this originally was that most of the insurance brokers don't get cyber. And then also, so insurance is generally paid off of commission. Let's look at, I mentioned I work with a lot of law firms. So you got a, say, $10 million a year law firm. You'll have a general business owner's policy that's going to be like maybe $5,000 on the high end, a cyber policy that's around $5,000 to $7,000, and then a lawyer's professional liability policy that's going to be $100,000. Knowing that these guys work off of commission, where do you think that agent's going to be spending all their effort? So cyber is it's still such a cheap policy compared to other ones that you're only getting, the agents that do cyber are really good. There's just not that many of them, right? They're usually, hey, I'm working on your professional liability, your property insurance. Oh, and let me throw this cyber thing on there. So that's where the MSP became the advisor, was they're the ones that are in there. They're doing the cybersecurity already. They know, they understand it. So I always tell people, talk to your MSP first. They know this. They know the security controls that are needed. The industry as a whole is pretty educated just on that baseline of cybersecurity that insurance looks for. So make sure, get a thumbs up from your MSP before you dive into the insurance side of the conversation.
Thanks for joining us today on Win.
You've been listening to Win with Richardson and Richardson. What's important now? We're so glad you've joined us and know you're one step closer to winning big in your business too. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to connect@rnr.consulting. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll easily know when new episodes are available. Until next time, you can win, and we're here to help.